Kia ora koutou katoa, no mai hara mai ki te ao Hākinakina, your sports show, right here on your Tribal Pulse, Te Kore Mako o Taranaki, 94.8 FM and 98.4 FM. Well, when it comes to rugby league, he is a name well known and respected right across the country. He is the current Aotearoa New Zealand Māori Rugby League chairman and also sits on the New Zealand Rugby League board of directors. He is a pou within the Waikato Rugby League community and an integral part of the game here in Taranaki in the late 80s and in the 90s. Most of all, he is a good bloke that loves his community and his people. No mai hara mai, JD, John Devonshire, kei te pehi a koe.
Yeah, no, great, thank you, Pai. Yeah, very well. Been busy time with a lot of activity happening around the place, but I'm well, thank you, Caps. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, ko wai koe no he koe, a bit about yourself, where you were born, raised, and now reside.
Yeah, I was born in the Wairarapa. I'm Ngāti Nunuki Wairarapa on my mother's side. My mother's Māori and my father was English. So, yeah, I resided down there, and my father was into construction. So we moved around a lot of places, Wellington, Marsden Point, Taranaki with Mutunui, and travelled around the Motu quite extensively and had a good view or good taste of living around, and that was South Island and North Island. So yeah, had a 3 or 4 year stints in Turangi, of course. Very fond of Turangi. Worked there at the projects there with Downer & Company, who my father worked for.
Awesome. So rugby league, where did it all begin for you, and what was it about rugby league that you loved, and how'd you get into it?
Well, I played rugby league when I was young, as you do, as most rangatahi do at school, and Turangi. I was first 15 and rugby Saturday, league Sundays, and so I got introduced to the game there at under 15, 13s, 15s, 17s, and I was lucky to play for Midlands and represent the football, but Turangi Dam Busters, and then we shifted to Marsden Point, and I lived at Ruakaka, so it was the Takihiwai Warriors, and following them, and they didn't have a schoolboy team, so we used to hitchhike into Whangarei and play for Portland Panthers, the Portland Parrots, sorry, and then moved around the country and ended up in Taranaki, and got involved with the game there.
Also, we had a bit of a chat earlier, and I didn't realise you actually spent some time on Te Kore Mako too, doing the sports show back in the day.
Yeah, I remember when it first started, and well, his name was Hemi Flavel back then, and then days of running up at Bell Street, and then up to Rangiatea, and Charlie McAllister and Sporty Marshall, very good friends of mine. Both have passed on now, and and did some interviews and stuff with the sports show there. So there was a connection there, Caps.
That's awesome. So your time in Taranaki, obviously you were a pou down here in terms of the organisation of rugby league down here in Taranaki in your time. What are some of those key highlights and memories that you have of your time down here when you once lived down here?
I loved it. I loved my time in Taranaki. It gave me a good grounding, and I'll always be grateful to the time spent and the people I spent. And it sort of started off with I was working shift work, and I couldn't get to trainings at Marist at Bell Block. So there was one team them days, and there was 30 players. So those that didn't make training didn't get picked, and that was old Barry Christensen's motto. So that was fine. So I ended up, as a youth, I ended up playing rugby at New Plymouth Old Boys, and played there, and then did the Sunday thing. I was lucky to have 2 years as a player with the Marist Club, and we took out the reserve grade and then stepped up to premiers. But with shift work and that, I couldn't make training. So a good friend of mine and a good friend of the game and a legend in Taranaki himself, Henry Cartonet, he was out of the Suburbs Club, of course, Ngāti Ruanui. He said, why don't you become a referee and help the game, because we need refs. So I said, well, okay then, Paro, I'll try that. And he said, ring this bloke, and the bloke's name was John Gardner. And just happened to be a meeting that Tuesday. So I went to this meeting at John Gardner's place up there in Maryland, and we sat there. There were 6 of us there, and they said, you know, just like to come and referee and learn to referee. So I did a 12-year-old game down at Namutu Domain under 12s, and I started, and I sort of enjoyed it. Then I went back to the next referees meeting, and they said, "Hey, we need a delegate on the TRL. We need a delegate." And the same 6 fellas there, and John said, "No, he's done his dash." And they said, "Would I consider going on to the TRL board?" And I said, "Yeah, okay. Now what does that involve?" And they said, "No, you just go there and report back to us at our meetings." And I said, "Oh, that doesn't sound too hard." So off I went to the TRL. I was now on the TRL as a referees delegate. And then I went to my first TRL meeting, and Duncan Tangina out of the Waikato club, he was the president. He says, we need a secretary, and we've got no secretary. Would you consider being secretary? And I was green as grass, and I remember talking to Laurie Denton at Sport Taranaki and stuff about how you become involved in a sports club and stuff. And I said, okay, I'll give it a go then. So I ended up being secretary at Taranaki Rugby League, and first time on the board, didn't know much about it, but I soon learned. I was very lucky that I had people around like the Terry Tamatis and the Jack Nuckies and the Tom McCullochs and different people, and the Curtis Smiths from down the coast and down in Hawara, you know, Chris Scott and Graham West and people like that. So I ended up being the secretary of the league. And then the second meeting I went to of the TRL, they said, "We're sending teams to Wauru." This is in 1987. They said, "We're sending representative teams to Wauru." They were 17s and 19s back then. And they said, "We haven't got a manager for the 17s." And they went round the table at the TRL board meeting, and no one could do it. And I said, "What does a manager do?" And then they told me this. And anyway, Jack was the coach, Jack Nucky, and I, we headed off to the tournament in 1987. So we did that for 2 or 3 years and just be managing teams. And then I was asked by Terry Tamati and asked to would I be available to help out the Taranaki team. So I came through the grades, still being a referee, and that was my introduction to being a manager with great guys like Terry, great guys like Jack. And then on the refereeing side of it, Big Daddy, as we called him there, Phil Kemp, Tony Kemp's dad, Phil Kemp, he was a legendary coach with youth and could get the best out of them. And he'd go attend the New Zealand schoolboy tournament to under 15s. And I remember guys like Boxer Flutie and Jock Collingwood and all these blokes. And he said, "Would you be my manager?" I told him, "Would you be my referee?" Every district needed to take a referee. So I said to Big Daddy Phil, I said, "Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I could do that." And so I went to my first tournament there around 1991 with Phil, and he took me to this tournament, New Zealand League tournament, and up in Auckland, and we did okay. And Taranaki always boxed above punched above their weight. And yeah, and then sort of a break came a game in 1993. I was able to go to the tournament in Wauru with the under 19s, and they put this pānui out at the tournament caps, and they said, "We're looking for managers for New Zealand teams. The junior Kiwis under 19 team, anyone interested at this tournament, put their name through." And Jack said, "Just put your name in." I said, "Mate, I've got nothing, I've never done anything like that before." So I said, "Okay." I put my name in 93, and long story short, 26 applied, 6 were interviewed, and I got the job. And I was off to England and France and America for 9 weeks. It was the last of the big tours. I toured England and for 6 weeks, led teams out onto Wembley and Old Trafford and all that, and then 2 weeks in France, and then a week in America on the way home. So yeah, I was very lucky, and then that was the start of my run. After that, and I just progressed the junior Kiwis for another 3 or 4 years, and then New Zealand teams, presidents teams and New Zealand A and residents, did all that. And whilst I was doing that, Caps, I looked over to my right, and there was this group called New Zealand Māori Rugby League. And I was asked would I be involved or get involved with New Zealand Māori Rugby League. And I said, I gave them my assurance that once I'd finished with the NZRL and gone as far as I could go, I would give back to my people. I didn't believe in serving two masters. I wanted to do one job properly. And that's when I got involved in New Zealand Rugby League. It was 1997, and I tell you, I got a message from the New Zealand Rugby League that I've been selected as the Kiwis manager, and that was for, you might remember this, but back then they had State of Origin, and the New Zealand Kiwis played in the State of Origin series in 1997 against Queensland and New South Wales. And I was selected to be the manager, and the coach was a guy called Graham Norton, Natty Norton, from the North Shore. And so we played in that series, and I got a letter and come through the mail and said, New Zealand Rugby League envelope, and I was really stoked, real proud, shared it with my family, and I was real proud to be, be named as the Kiwi manager. There were two of us. There was a football manager and a business manager. And then another week later, I got another letter, and I thought, this must be the details about the tour and everything. And I kept the letter for a bit, and then I let it go and threw it out. And it said, unfortunately, due to budget restraints, we can only go with one manager, and we've decided to go with a guy called Laurie Stubbings out of the Waikato. So my story is I was Kiwi manager for a week. Yeah, and did no games. So, yeah, and the rest is history after that. New Zealand Māori got involved. I ran my first tournament in 1997 with a guy called Dave Ahu. That was under the chairman of Bob Tukiri. And I think it's 27 years this year. Done every tournament since, 27 years. So a little bit of a time. And then around 2000, we had an idea that let's bring in rangatahi. So we brought two teams in. We only had two teams, and it was Te Whanganui Tara 18s and Auckland Māori 18s. So we started with two teams, and then a couple of years after that, we said, well, I've had some ideas in a whakaaro around, let's bring in 14s and that, and maybe look at some girls. So we started up the Taina tournament, and and just sort of went from there. We had 4 girls teams to start with. Now we're up to over 37, 41, and then we had then we started the Tamariki tournament, and we had 24 teams the first year at Hopopu, and that was 10s to 12-year-olds. 24 teams. As next year we had 56, which, mate, this is getting too big. And now, pleased to say, this year we had 115. So I think if we're a business, we'll be going through the roof. And and I say this with respect, is that we're all volunteers. All this never got paid a cent. It cost us money, but it was just a passion and a dedication. And then my good friend Howie Tamini said, "Well, you're running all these tournaments, you might as well come onto the board." In 2004, so that's 20 years on the board now. And then due to health reasons and stuff, how we stood down in 2014. He did a 10-year stint. He said, I want to hand over the reins to you, and I'll always be grateful to Howie's mentoring and support, tautoko and stuff. So so now's the 10 years up on his chair. So little bit of story, but hope that So it keeps the dream alive for everyone out there, and that was for a kid, especially in 93. I remember Gordon Brown in the Daily News and Murray Hills did an interview and says, JD goes to Disneyland, because I'd never been out of the country. And we're going to America, and, just the story. And that was, there were good people around, the likes of that Cafe Boxer and people like that are just huge people in the Tamati family, Jack Nut, like this. I'll always be grateful for those people in Taranaki that give me that opportunity.
Wow, what a journey. Awesome journey, man. And all the way, starting there with Clubland there in Taranaki and back in Turangi Dam Busters, what an awesome journey. So you've held the role as chairperson for the last 10 years at Aotearoa New Zealand Māori Rugby League, and the growth has obviously been unbelievable. What is it that make these tournaments so unique?
Well, it's like, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. When you're dealing with Māori, we're a different species, and we're a unique species, and we love to be unique, and we love to keep our tikanga, our ways of doing things. And for example, our Māori tournaments are solely around whakapapa. You've got to have whakapapa. So if you're from Taranaki and you whakapapa to Te Atiawa or wherever that may be around the maunga, you come back and you can play for Taranaki, irrespective of whether you live in Sydney, Wellington, Auckland, or you shifted to Palmy for uni. You know, in the mainstream system, and I acknowledge the mainstream system, you know, you need transfers, clearances, and there's a lot of I call it Pākehā process, double P. But in Māori, you just got to have whakapapa and you know, we fill out forms. If you're challenged, you know, you've got to either reside there or whakapapa there. So I think that's probably the single biggest difference. And all due respect to mainstream, it's different to pay for your people. I always said, Caps, it's one thing to play for your country, and I've led teams out onto Wembley and in Philadelphia and everywhere around the world, but it's another thing to represent your people. And, you know, there's no greater honour than that. And I love the Kiwis. I'm Kiwi heart. You know, as you know, I'm a director on the New Zealand Rugby League. So, you know, I wear, you know, a foot in both camps. But with Māori, it's that uniqueness. It's that making it, affordable, making it so it's easy, and we're dealing with our own, because we're, you know, there's a lot of characters in our game, as the late David Longy always said. There's a lot of characters in Rugby League. Devonshire, I said, I hope you're ready. I said, well, you can't con artist, David, you know. So I heard all the rules and all the excuses under the sun. So yeah, and it's just growing, and one of the biggest things I enjoy about it is that people make that hong, or that connection back to where they come from, and they represent their iwi, their hapu, their whānau. And yeah, and it's an opportunity. There is a pathways, but I like to think our tournaments are not so much driven by results and what we call high performance, but more by who you are and where you come from. And I've always maintained that it's about celebrating being Māori, because, you know, there's a lot of other sports, and there's a lot of, and there's other Māori national sports bodies too, but you know there's the Pacifica, especially in our game. There's the Pacifica input and content, and this is just Māori for Māori, be Māori. You know, have a haka, have a beautiful experience, the wairua, and just celebrate being Māori. It's more of a celebration than a competition. A lot of coaches won't agree with me there, Caps, but you know, because to be quite honest, between you and I don't really care who wins or who loses. But as long as they come and enjoy and have a good experience, and, you know, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, you know, like, you know, and Taranaki gave me that grounding in that, you know, like for many, many years, Taranaki, you know, 4 hours, 4.5 hours travel. Well, my whānau here in the Waikato Tainui, an hour and a half down the road in Namoni. You know, like, mate, you know, I've done a lot of those trips through Bennydale and that 8 Mile Junction and getting home, and, you know, she's, you know, and I just marvel at people like that, the Ngāpui lot from, you know, from Taitokoro, you know, they just drive for hours just to be, and love to be part of it. And, you know, on the competition side of it, Māori tournaments are always acknowledged as the hardest tournaments to win. You know, I did the first tournament at Hopopu in 1996, and I've done, you know, many tournaments, but Māori tournaments are, you know, the hardest to win. And even now involved in PAC, I'm the chairman of the Pacific Aotearoa Collection with 7 other nations, and we've sort of been the tuakana to our Samoan, Tongan, you know, Niue, Cook Islanders, Tokelau, Fijian brothers. You know, so they've seen what we've achieved at our tournaments. They've seen what we've achieved on the field as a people. They're respectful to us as Hākinakina of Aotearoa, and now, you know, I'm really stoked that, like, the Tongans, they have a national tournament now. They have a national tournament. Niue, they have a tournament in Whangarei, and look at a country in a tournament in Wellington. Tokelau is having a tournament in Wellington. Samoa hasn't really picked up the initiative yet, but I guess there's that many Samoans in Auckland. They probably don't need to, because they're very competitive. But, you know, that's come out of what we've done as Māori, and they've seen. And now, you know, look what's done for the game. So not only have we helped Māori, but we're helping our Pacific Island brothers and sisters as well.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Some awesome kōrero there, JD. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. There are many across the nation and across the oceans that are grateful for your service to not only the game, but to helping transform lives. We appreciate all that you have done and all that you continue to do for the game, for the people, and for the communities, and we wish you well on your next steps. and in your rugby league hikoi from us in Taranaki here. We thank you. So, yeah, lovely to have you on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I just want to plug the Bill Block Maris Dragons. You know, that did a lot for me there with the Christensen whānau, and you know, we never had a club rooms then. We used to meet in up Gusney Grove where Daryl Christensen lived in his basement, and we'd have our aftermax functions wherever we could. They'd even have us. So, yeah, and the Taranaki, right? I was always, you know, one of my highlights that I'll always remember as a referee was the Horo Cup between Coastal and Western Suburbs, and Wayne, what a beautiful player he was, and Kuru and Curls, and you know, even to this day, and as you know, I've been around the country to a lot of clubs and had a lot of kai, you know, the way Panthers, Tani Wharehi were involved now, but no one ever matched the kai that Coastal put on. You know, the Coastal Cobras, man, their kai was beautiful, and the James family and all those people down there. So of great you know, great memories of Taranaki, and always be grateful. So thanks for having me, Caps. Yeah.
Nah, thank you for being with us.